So this little thing's been causing quite a buzz lately, and I don't mean in the it's probably going to go faulty and blow up kind of way. I mean the rumour mill seems to be alive with the sound of Apple TV. Now, fresh rumours seem to be abound, and there have been rumours for donkey's years now that Apple are going to bring out a much more powerful version of this, which is kind of part of the course. We all know that Apple are going to bring out new hardware. But the latest rumours seem to suggest that there will be an A12 variant, or a lower processor spec version of it, and something based on the A14 as well, which is kind of interesting. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the reasons why I think that's interesting and how it links back into my whole thing about Apple gaming and what they're going to be doing with their new line of Apple Silicon. So first things first, I think it's a pretty clever move by them if they do go for this lower spec version of the Apple TV and a high spec version of it. And the reason being is if they're going to go for a more gaming centered version of this and it's going to have the additional cost, potentially a bundled games controller in there, then that's going to bump the price right off, and that's really going to put off those people who just want it for an Apple TV with some basic app functionality. So by having the two versions, you keep that core existing market that already exists, which allows Apple to really push further into the Apple movies, syncing up the Apple Music and everything with that lower spec device, but then it also really allows them to go for that gaming market as well. So I'm mostly going to focus on the A14 version of the Apple TV, which seems to be the gaming focused one. And there's been so many things talked about in recent years about Apple bringing some kind of games console to the market or a gaming focused Mac or MacBook. And it kind of makes sense for them to go for something like this that has more gaming focus to it. At the end of the day, if you bundle this up with a games controller and Apple put some real focus into gaming, they could make a massive dent in the market. They weren't afraid to go for it with Apple Arcade, although it kind of was a bit of a lackluster event. But you know what, fingers crossed they make a difference this time. If they could bring out some real powerful hardware, we've already shown that obviously things like the iPad and other things, especially Apple Silicon now, it really can deliver on that gaming performance. It's just the software side of it. Clearly they're not getting developers on board, and the ones that they are getting on board just kind of bring pretty looking games with no real depth. The other rumour that's been floating around with this is they're going to have a Breath of the Wild, competitor, which would be very interesting to see if they actually pull that off. I highly doubt they will, because at the end of the day, the depth and everything else that goes into that is different. I'm sure we'll probably see an open world Ocean Horn instead, which again, looks great on the outside, but when you start using it, it just becomes a bit meh. But I really hope that Apple kind of change their focus this time around and put some real effort into the gaming side of things. What I said in one of my previous videos about Apple gaming and how it's not going to be dead for the Macs is the fact that Apple Silicon is going to be the first time where Apple realistically have all of their devices in a line, so everything is going to be running on the same sort of architecture. So your iPhones, your iPad, your Apple TV, your Macs and your MacBooks all running on very similar hardware means that from a developer standpoint, fingers crossed, we'll start to see people bringing across things that will be able to go multi-platform. And that could be the real difference here. Is this the time where Apple are finally going to have everything lined up where they can bring out something like a gaming focused Apple TV and have that console-like experience? The other thing, we're seeing more and more games now have that cross-platform ability. So I can pick up a game on my iPhone, play it on my iPad, and then pick up where I left off on the Apple TV. Now imagine if they got some serious developers on board with this, like, I don't know, the latest Call of Duty for example, and you could play it on your Apple TV, but when you're out and about you have a Switch-like experience. That's pretty appealing, at least for me anyway, depending on the price tag. Another thing that makes me think this could potentially be likely is Apple's anti-competitiveness when it comes to cloud streaming and cloud gaming at the moment. They've been very resistant to allowing anything like that onto their platform, and they've insisted that they're not going to have a direct competitor for this, and ultimately they have all sorts of wishy-washy reasons about everything should be downloaded so they can rank it in the App Store and make sure it's safe and make sure your kids aren't being, in front of awful things. But it all kind of falls apart because then you look at the arguments of Netflix and all of that. But that aside, Apple do not want cloud gaming on any of their platforms at the moment, which makes me think, why? They don't particularly have anything that's going to eat away. They don't have any AAA gaming or anything like that. So it's not really a direct competitor, but it might be. And here's the thing, if they bring out something like this, which is going to start bringing console class experience and they're going to try and get some developers on board, then it suddenly makes a lot of sense that Apple probably don't want people to sit and go, well actually I can just get all my games on the cloud instead and stream them to my new Apple TV and go for the lower spec ones. It will just eat into their future market share. So another thing there. Obviously, then there's the flip side as well, which means that this could all be a load of rubbish. Apple could bring something like this out with the most awesome hardware in the world, but they've got to get developers on board. And So far, Apple's attitude towards gaming and developers and everyone else has been a bit meh. They've really shown very little respect to gaming and the gaming industry and the gaming market, and time again, they've just dipped the toe and then just left it. The Apple TV could have been a gaming device a long time ago, but they shipped it with that awful controller that everybody seems to hate. And if they're going to do it this time around, they really need to bundle it with something like an actual controller. Granted, these work now with Apple TV, but again, they're not incentivizing developers to get on board with the platform, and that's going to be the first step. Apple's Achilles heel at the moment when it comes to gaming isn't the hardware, and it's not necessarily even the software. It's Apple themselves. Like I said, they're just showing a genuine disinterest in gaming, unless it's exceptionally casual gaming that they can monetize. Now that they've got things like the Apple One product, where you'll be able to bundle all these subscription services, having something like Apple Arcade front and center with those and actually appealing, it's about time really that they do that. If they can really nail down the next Apple TV and bring out something that is gaming focused, has awesome hardware, awesome software, and gets developers on board, then it just makes their services so much more appealing. And one of those things that's always really easy to look at with Apple is, if they bring something like this out, is it going to cost an arm and a leg? And I suppose you could argue that, yeah, most likely will do, especially if it's going to have a variant of the A14 chip in there. The results so far and the benchmarks have shown that the A14 is a very capable chip with awesome graphics processing power on it as well. And if it's going to have a more powerful variant of that, then who knows what it's going to be capable of. But then the real question is, what cost is involved with that? Now, my thoughts are that if they do it, they'll probably do it as a bit of a loss leader. Apple has shown recently that they're willing to really cut down on some of their costs. I mean, you just need to look at the iPhone SE, the Apple Watch SE, and even the MacBooks are moving into lower price points. So it would be interesting to see what they do with this, and especially with the next gen consoles coming up in, the next few months, and no one can get their hands on those. Could this fill a gap where people are impatient and wanting something, and what sort of processing power is it going to deliver? These are all questions that I don't have the answer to, but if I was a betting man, it will be a damned powerful device capable of some pretty interesting things, just whether or not Apple can make sure that developers get on board with them, and I don't think that they can. Not saying that Apple couldn't do it. If they wanted to, Apple can do it, and we all know that. They can move into new markets and they can absolutely dominate the space. But I just don't think Apple have the will to. I think that they feel that their, casual gaming is fine at the moment, and what they're doing with Apple Arcade is fine. And I suppose to an extent it is. If you get it included with the bundle, then Apple Arcade is not necessarily bad. But if you paid for Apple Arcade, you're going to come away disappointed because there's not particularly much enticing on there, which is, again, it's a shame. Apple have done very little. They've shown that they've got a half-hearted, approach to gaming, and I can't see this time around being any different. The only thing that makes me feel it will be different is that we've got Apple Silicon coming out, and everything is going to be lined up. And at the end of the day, if they can make it that a developer can bring out a AAA game on something like this, and then have a low spec version of that across all of the Apple devices, then maybe, just maybe, it can be different. And they can start going down that Nintendo Switch route, whilst also having full-blown console-like games on the Apple TV. So let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think Apple are going to do this time around with the Apple TV? Like I said, the rumours and the leaks all seem to suggest that we're going to get an A12 version of it and an A14 version of it, which kind of puts it into two price points, and then that A14 one is going to be the gaming console focused version. There's a lot flying around at the moment, and Apple's event is coming up next Tuesday, so fingers crossed we will find out a little bit more about this bad boy and the future of Apple gaming. So hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll be back soon with some more videos. In the meantime, stay safe and we'll see you soon. Ta-ra!